Today on the show, strategy plus action equals how to build a business around connection. Great coaches and consultants like you have the ability to change people's lives and transform entire organizations. And your impact can often go far beyond the clients you work with. One of the reasons I love working with coaches and consultants is because of that ripple effect. This show is here to highlight your expertise and empower you with resources and new ideas to grow your business. Welcome to Strategy in Action. Frank Agin is on the show today, and we are talking about one of my favorite topics in the entire world, and that is connecting, networking, getting to know other people, certainly on the business side of things, but really all over in life, being great at that and understanding how we can do it better, how we can be intentional with it. And I had the good fortune to be introduced to Frank by my good friend, Drew Duraney. And I'm so glad that not only were we introduced and we got to have a call, but even before that, to go to one of Frank's, monthly networking groups that he has and watch him in action. We talk about it a little more in the episode, but I was absolutely blown away by how incredibly intentional and crafted he is with understanding who people are looking for in their business, who he can send to them, not just asking, taking some notes about it, but really digging in further with each person to make sure he understands, to make sure everyone in that room understands really well what that person needs. It's such a powerful skill. And, I knew right then, that was what I wanted to bring Frank onto the show to talk about. And we had just an amazing conversation about that subject, how he's built an entire business around that skill, his books that he's written, his show that he has going on. Just so impressed with what he's built here. All right, let's jump in. Frank Agin, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate being on Strategy in Action. That sounds like a superhero movie. I'm ready.
Nice. Well, we're gonna find out. Let's make a superhero movie.
Okay, great.
I appreciate you being on. I had the good fortune to be introduced to you from our mutual friend Drew Duraney. He sent me to one of your events, networking groups, and thank goodness we got to have a one-on-one and kind of dig in, because I really thought you would be the perfect person to discuss this topic with me of really creating a business around connection. It's my favorite thing in the world is connection and being purposeful with it. And at the risk of giving you a compliment to your face once again, I was unbelievably impressed being in one of those breakout rooms with you and watching how you got from these other people, who they needed, what they needed, who you could connect them to. And we all understand that line of questioning, and we've been in networking groups where that kind of floats around. But to watch your purposefulness with that and skill at pulling it from each person as well, I was blown away. Really, really impressed with it. And so I wanted you here today to talk about exactly that.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the opportunity. Jason, it really breaks my heart to see people who, we're all in business. It's not easy, right? What you do is not easy. I don't have to know a whole lot about it. It's not easy. People may think it's easy. They may think it's glamorous. You're just rolling in the money. It's not easy. I can tell you that. And somebody who tells you it's easy, they're full of it. But it breaks my heart to see people who are clearly passionate about what they do and are really likable people not get business because they don't do a great job of articulating who they're looking for. And they just assume everybody knows. Well, and I used to be an attorney. They just assumed everybody knew what attorneys did. Well, they don't. And nobody was going to tell me, we don't get it. They were just going to smile at me It's a very Midwestern thing, smile and nod their head like they understood. And I could throw Latin in there and, it sounds so impressive. And they're just going to be polite and just take it all in and then walk away saying, what the hell did that guy just say? And I get nothing for it. And so I like to, I don't want people feel like I'm picking on them, but geez, I want to understand, if you're looking for a car, don't just tell me you're looking for a car. Tell me the make, model, color, just describe it to me. Because if you just, so anyhow.
Well, and that's exactly it though, because we are on both sides of the coin, right? On the person who wants to recommend business to this person and to that business owner who's not articulating the message. We have the ideas, just like you were talking about. You were an attorney. Everyone knows what an attorney does. Well, not really. Everyone has their own idea of what an attorney does, how accurate or not that is. And certainly when it comes down to your specific specialization and what you do. And that's what trips people up so much right there, because thank goodness we're in this great connected world and people do understand different roles more than they did before, but it's still, some of them are more than others, especially attorney, right? We bring our own baggage and ideas to that. And then to your side, as you're trying to pull this out of folks, it's just because you understand human beings. We need that very specific, you're looking for a 1947,
Right.
Ford model, like this kind of thing we need that specificity to grab onto so that we're triggered as we're talking to these other folks. And that's just, it's just human nature. Like we just need that. So when you understand that, then you can go in and kind of craft that message for exactly that.
Yeah. It's the reticular activation system, right? It's a little system in our brain where, I tell people you drive around all the time, you look at billboards, you read every one of them, but they go in and they just kind of go into this bucket of noted, but not really relevant. But then if you're looking for a car, and then you see that billboard for, big sale on cars, that's going to hit you because that's what's in your head. And so that's why we need to be specific with one another. If you tell me I'm looking for a pink VW Bug, when I see that pink VW Bug, I'm thinking of you. Whereas if you just tell me I'm looking for a used car, I'm going to drive around and see used cars and nothing will ever come of it. So.
Oh yeah. And that's really why I wanted to dig into this topic. One is it's my favorite thing in the world, just connecting with other people, whatever that is. I love it. It lights me up. It's why I do the shows that I do. It's why I jump in and connect with people. But for everyone who maybe that doesn't light them up and they see it as, well, I probably should be doing it. I like to have this conversation because it is absolutely so critical. These connections that we can make and they develop can change our business, overnight almost, like one introduction, one insight from somebody you meet can make all the difference. And I think you were the quintessential person to bring on for this. Not only are you great in that environment and you do that so well, but you've built an entire business around that. So I want to give people that context of what you have going on now, and that journey from being an attorney to what you're doing now.
Yeah, it's a story of not really knowing what the hell I wanted to do, but just doing what I thought would be cool. I went to college because I wanted to play football. I did well in college because I didn't want to get kicked off the football team. That led me to law school because, hey, you needed to do something great with these great grades. And so I ended up at the Ohio State University. I got a law degree. I got an MBA. And what are you supposed to do with that? Well, you go and you work for a big firm. I was a tax consultant. It was a great job. It was great pay. It was great everything. Except I didn't want to do taxes for the rest of my life. I'm entrepreneurial. I'm like you. I want to get out there. I want to talk to people. And So I left and figured the next best step would be going to private practice. And a funny thing happened to me when I went into private practice. And the funny thing was that nothing happened. I had no idea how to get business. I had no idea how to network. Didn't even really know what it was. I was that bad actor running around at networking events, just thrusting my card in front of people, figuring, somebody's going to hire me, right? I've got all these credits. I was a CPA at that point. And somebody suggested at one point that I get into a tips club or a leads group. People are familiar with BNI. Well, there was an organization here in town. It was based out of Pittsburgh. I went to a meeting. It made total sense that you can lift your whole world up just helping other people. You help them and just trust that they'll help you in return. It's not a perfect 1-for-1. Sometimes you're given 10 and you get 8 back. Sometimes you're given 5 and getting 7 back. But that's how it worked. And so I really doubled down on that. Make a long story short, I had an opportunity to buy the organization back in the early 2000s, and I did. And I stopped the practice of law. And I really wanted to become what I call a student of networking, a student of relationships, and understanding why things work, why people have good relationships, and why people don't. So it's led me into writing a number of books. I have a podcast where I talk about these issues related to relationships and just try and meet interesting people and connect them and just trust that it'll come back to me.
Oh yeah. That's awesome. I love that you really, what we get the advice for, right? A lot of time is to kind of serve our former self, or, build a business to solve a pain point. And you're kind of in that bucket, right? Because you had to figure this thing out. There weren't networking classes in law school.
No.
Imagine. Or
still aren't.
Building, right?
Yeah.
And so, you had to kind of wing it and figure this thing out. So the name of the company?
It's called AmSpirit, which is short for American Spirit, AmSpirit, Business Connections. And we create groups of entrepreneurs, sales reps, professionals, small business types. I hesitate saying that, your small law firms, your independent insurance agent or your insurance agents, realtors, mortgage lenders, and they come together every week. They have these groups, they come together, they learn about each other, develop relationships, and then exchange referrals. We do a lot in the organization of really trying to educate people on, hey, you need to dumb it down so people understand what you're about. What do I need? Don't tell me what you do. I know you're a realtor. I know you sell houses. I get that. Tell me when you do it. Oh, when they're moving mom into a home. Then they got to do something with your childhood home, your family home. That's when you need a realtor, right? Or when somebody's just getting married and they're living in an apartment, they're expecting a child. That's a when. So don't tell me what you do. Talk about all the whens when people are buying homes. And that's true of everybody. I get what you do. When is so much more powerful.
I love that distinction so much, because that helps us just in crafting our message, period, in any kind of marketing we're doing, or even who we're looking for ourselves, because we hear that all the time, right? Niche down, okay, I get it. But that win is such a great, it's such a great filter for really just for making that distinction. I love that. I want to get back to that education piece in a second, because that's exactly what I was wondering about as we were starting this conversation. But I want to make sure that we understand the structure of AmSpirit as well. Like, how does that work, and regional, all of that? And
I have franchisees. I have I think 20 franchisees around the country. In Massachusetts, Florida, Arizona, a lot in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Wisconsin. So we continue to grow, and these groups are probably 15 people each on average. So they're not huge groups, but you go to the same group and you get to know the same people each week. And so you join, you pay a one-time initiation fee, and then you pay quarterly dues thereafter. So our one-time initiation fee right now is $295. And then it's $95 a quarter thereafter. So it's roughly $1 a day. It's not a lot of money, but it's but it's an organization. We tell people it's your effort. This is not a get your name on the rolls and you're in the organization, right? This is a situation where you've got to be active and you've got to be connecting with people and getting people to understand and understanding them, because that's the other half of the equation.
Oh yeah, and so definitely see the benefit for the regional aspect of these. Just like, there's so many businesses still that, hey, this is my area, this is my thing. How has that shifted or not? Since we've all gone virtual like crazy.
Yeah.
What was that transition, and how does it look now compared to before?
Well, when, like most people, when the pandemic hit, a lot of people, I had that moment of panic, waking up. It was a Saturday, Sunday, 3 a.m. The governor just closed down the state, more or less. We're not going anywhere. What does that do to a business that's largely face-to-face? And I was, this is my life's work. I mean, I've been doing it for the last 20 years. And so I was panicked, but small business people are great. They will figure it out. They didn't figure the government was going to do anything. The government did come through, but nobody was banking on that. And so most groups got onto Zoom immediately. There were a couple that were kind of dragging their feet. Well, we'll just wait 2 weeks till the curve is flattened. It ain't getting flattened, right? We're going to be doing this for a while. So we got on Zoom and just kind of muddled along. It actually did well through the pandemic. It's been a little more difficult for us getting out of the pandemic because people, when I say that, people, Zoom is nice, right? I don't have to put on pants to go to my meeting, kind of a thing, right? And it's like, no, these groups are going to start meeting in person. It's like, well, that's a hardship for me. It's like, yeah, this is the way it's going to be. But by and large, it's we're pretty much back to normal. I do have some groups, probably about 10% of the groups that by design have said we're going to be virtual only. I have a group out in Massachusetts. It's pretty much business to business people. They're all over the state. Mass is not huge, but you're not going to travel from the western edge of Massachusetts to get to a meeting, and there's people out on the Cape. So it's all, it works well for them. So we're doing well.
That's great. Because I know it certainly opens up, the world, right? When you're meeting virtually, but that's also a different model too, to a group. And is there thoughts or plans around sort of the global version or the whole US version or anything like that in this virtual way?
Well, where we met, the networking hub, which is a once a month gathering, that's kind of, nothing's ever going to be totally global because there's 24 hours in the day and, it's truly 5 o'clock somewhere, right? It truly is. And it's 5 a.m. somewhere too, right? So not everybody in the world, there's no point where everybody in the world is all up, right? There are times when half the world is asleep. And so it's hard to sort of be global, but we've really started to expand nationally. And I'm really kind of focused on growing the business nationally more so than internationally at this point. Just, stand and walk before I run and see what that looks like. So.
Yeah. And so, that group that I was a part of, that the once a month deal, that's really, it was almost your kind of answer to like, okay, we've got to do something here, bigger. And it seems like that has opened up things, not to be another division of, AmSpirit, but to be something that feeds that for sure.
Yeah.
Like you said, the more people you can bring together, now let's open one up in Texas and here and here and here.
Yeah. Well, when I'm working in the AmSpirit world, I serve these members and I am totally dialed into doing the things I need to do to help them, much like you serve your clients, right? And so I don't take the time to say, well, this is where I need help. Just like you with your clients, right? You're helping them. I'm working with you. You're paying me to help you, not get helped by you. And I recognize that. I recognize that, and I do want to help the members. But the networking hub was really kind of born out of the notion that, I need to get out and network. And this is a way for me to meet people. And I wouldn't have met Drew. I wouldn't have met you. I wouldn't have met 6 dozen other people that are on that call, here and there. And just got a LinkedIn message before we got on here. Hey, can you help me? I'm looking for this. Yeah, happy to. So that's really where it was kind of born out of. And it's the networking hub's kind of a free event. And, but it's all about us helping each other.
I love it. I want to get back to that education piece too, because that is just like we were talking about earlier. People don't know. They haven't been, educated on going beyond, I'm an attorney, So it sounds like, which I love to hear, in that AmSpirit world, in each of these franchises, like there is that education component. What does that kind of look like? And is it kind of a structured thing, or is it more like, hey, every week you're helping people refine, or both?
Yeah, it's not horribly structured. I mean, the groups meet and they run through a cadence, and that is structured, but the education piece is going to depend upon really what a particular chapter needs. And some chapters are really focused on growing and need a lot of help there. A lot of our emphasis is on referrals, and different chapters have different needs, and we just need to tailor that to, so we don't say, okay, it's the 3rd week in April, we're all doing this. It's every franchisee is looking at a group and saying, okay, this particular group needs to focus on this. For example, tomorrow, I have a meeting at 7:30 with a group, and we are focusing on A. We're going to be focusing on creating goals for the new year. And then at 9:00, I go to another meeting, and they're going to get something totally different because they need something totally different. Their goals are already set. They need to kind of step back and get some more fundamentals done. So it really depends. But part of the education is just, and this is something we talk about as the franchisees and myself, is to look at the membership, and if you see somebody struggling, pull them aside. I reached out to a guy this morning. It's like, listen, I was at your meeting. I think you could benefit by having a better message. Everybody really likes you. They think you're great. They would love to help you. They just don't have a clue as to how. And that was the initial conversation we had last year. And he said, well, I said, you just need to be more specific as to what you're asking for. So I'm trying to be. I'm telling them I'm looking for small businesses. Well, my conversation with them now is, yeah, that's nice, but 99.9% of the businesses in the United States are small businesses. So you really haven't narrowed it down, right? Oh, it's solopreneurs. Okay, there's 41 million solopreneurs in this country. That's not really narrowing it down. Now, if you tell me I work with small not-for-profits, because they generally have a volunteer board, okay, that's specific. Okay, now I'm getting it. Now now that reticular activation system is kind of kicking in, and I can say, yeah, I can think of 3 things where I can help you. Whereas when you have this very broad message of anybody, so, in that situation, it's I'm just going to dial in on what this particular person needs. And to me, that's time well spent, because I'm going to educate him. He's going to get it, and then he's going to share that learning with somebody else. Pull somebody else under his wing and say, hey, young buck, this is what I learned, and this is what you need to do. And just, it's just going to start to spread.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's so strong. And, I'm sure there's, different levels, because it is sort of that resistance often, at the beginning of like, well, it's either resistant to narrowing down and niching down, or just like, well, everyone knows, like you thought in the beginning, like everyone knows what an attorney does, and so just that fighting, and that's the thing too, I'm sure is finding those right folks who, that's probably part of being not just successful in one of these groups, but finding, your folks to be in these groups too. Like you need that, not just a giving and, aspect of things so that, they're coming in willing to refer, but also that openness, that coachableness, that all of that.
Yeah.
Just succeed and,
Well,
in anything.
when it comes to messaging, the problem becomes is that people, this is what a member said to me. My business, you don't understand, my business is so diverse. I can't narrow it down. It's so diverse. And I said, well, it's good that it's diverse because you can talk about different things and don't feel like you need to have a message every week. And I tell people, do not have one good 30-second commercial. Have maybe 3 dozen mediocre 30-second commercials, each touching on something different that you do. It's even like your clients, they're probably all different, right? So you kind of talk about, working with a law firm and this is their needs and this is what we put together for them. Oh, and over here, I've got a car dealership or something else that I'm putting programming together, and it's different needs. It's kind of it's all under your umbrella, right? But it's different needs. So there are different things to kind of look for.
I love that. I love that. And I absolutely don't hear that talked about really ever that I can think of. We all hear have your elevator pitch, have this down.
Yeah.
I don't hear that spoken about of having those different messages. And I'm sure a big reason in, like the AmSpirit world is because you're seeing these same folks, over and over again.
Yeah.
That's a big reason there to keep people from, glossing over like, oh yeah, I've got them in a bucket. I know. So it gives them some new nuggets, but it also just in any endeavor, in any networking event you're going into, reading the room, who am I talking to? Who's
That's it.
Their world, right? And if you have, 16 of these things that, okay, I'm talking to an executive coach. I know who he interacts with. And so I'm going to paint this picture, this scenario.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a superpower.
Read the room. And if you don't have the ability to read the room or know the situation, I always tell people just to couch it in terms of one of the many things we do is this. And then you kind of give them a little example or case study. There's lots of other things, but that's something I'm really excited that we've been working with. And, people, they'll draw, what other things might there be? They'll draw it out of you. The reality is if we have relationships with people, we're going to have lots of opportunities, maybe not weekly, but we'll have lots of opportunities to talk about the things we do. But if it's a one-off thing, we're not going to be doing business with them anyways. So, having that 30-second commercial that's, like it's some sort of Jedi mind trick is going to get them to, want to buy. It's just not going to happen.
And it's funny because we all know when we hear them, and even when we say them, I get exhausted by myself of saying the same thing over and over, like in my own head. But we hear that, and everyone listening, by all means, have that as opposed to nothing, without a doubt. Have something prepped and know what you're going to say, and not, well, we kind of I've been working on sort of, Of course, having that 30-second elevator pitch is better than that. But we feel those, right? When you go around the room in a networking event, and it's just like, it's half impressive that they know their stuff for sure.
Yeah.
But then there's also like, okay, they've said this a million times. It feels like they've said this a million times. There's not that little, oh, wow. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's okay. What's that? And when I don't know, there's an energy to that you can feel that freshness when you come to one of those meetings with, I'll tell you what, here's what we just did for this client last week and was amazing, right? And that paints the picture of what you do. There's such a freshness to that. I really like that.
Yeah. The other problem that people run into along these same lines is because they have that one thing, they're trying to encompass everything in this one thing. They end up trying to say everything, and which involves into nothing, but they try to say this one thing. And because it's hey, this is my one chance, they talk about the biggest, baddest thing they've ever done. I did a project for a Fortune 500 company. Well, that's great. But what you've done is you've basically told everybody that you work with Fortune 500 companies, and they're going to be like, ooh, I don't know anybody I can refer them. So they really kind of screw themselves. I always tell people, little things lead to big things. That little things lead to big things. So talk about some of the smaller things you do. Hey, we, worked on a program for somebody. They only really needed 3 episodes. Not really what I did. I'm not excited about it, but you know what? We did it. We did a great job. And then they, one of their clients saw it and, it turned into a big thing. Or they really got comfortable with what we were doing and decided, you know what? We can't stop at 3. We've got to do this every week. Right. So look for the small things to try and serve people with. And that's where having the multiple little messages here and there can really be powerful, because you send a signal to people. Yeah, as an attorney, I'll do somebody's will. Sure, I'm not excited about it, but I'll do somebody's will, because you just never know who they know or what that's going to lead to. They'll ask questions of you.
I love this topic so much. Tell me about the books you've written, because I'm curious to know.
Yeah, I've written several. Actually, I wrote 2 novels. That's what really got me started. Is I wrote a novel back in the '80s, just on a typewriter. Silliest thing, and but at any rate, that just kind of gave me the courage or the confidence that I could do it. People are, oh, you wrote a book. It's like, a book is nothing but words put into sentences that form paragraphs that make chapters. That's it. There's nothing special about it. It's just having the discipline to sit down and do, a couple pages a week, a couple pages a week, a couple pages a day. It just starts to add up. But my first book, once I bought what is now AmSpirit Business Connections, I bought it as an investment, right? Strategy and action. There really was no strategy. I didn't know what the actions were. I bought it kind of as an investment. It's like, being an attorney is fine. You're a glorified plumber. You do the work, you give them a bill, they pay it, you're off looking for the next thing. But to build a business is really kind of cool. And so I bought it as an investment, but then I realized quickly that I needed to serve these members, and I needed to be a student of networking, understand why things work, why people don't get referrals, what trips people up. And so I started to really look at it. And what I noticed was there's a lot of great networking books out there. Many of them are very tactical in nature. Go to a networking event, do this, have your cards, wear your name tag on this side. Those are all very tactical. And certainly there's value to those. But I knew people who were very good tactically who got very poor results. And then I knew people who were horribly tactically. Oh my God, you can't even put a 30-second set, you can't put a sentence together, let alone a 30-second commercial. But they had really good networks. And so I really started to explore that. And it's like, why is this? And the conclusion I came to is that it really was not about their tactics. It came down to the foundation of who those people were. People knew them, they liked them, they trusted them. And that's all that mattered. And if you're known, you're liked and trusted, if you're somebody who's contributing to the world around you, it doesn't matter if you can't speak the King's English, right? It doesn't matter. Nobody cares. If you're always late to things, it doesn't matter how polished you are, because you're late and people can't trust you. And so my first book is called Foundational Networking. And I really kind of explore that topic and encourage people that you need to become the person you want to network with. You want to have that person in your life who's confident. Well, you need to be that confident person. You can't expect people to be lifting you up. You want people to come into your life and to be givers. Well, you need to be that giving person. And when I talk about giving in there, I don't talk about finances at all. I talk about giving encouragement, giving referrals, making introductions to people. I mean, Drew introducing us is huge. For me, it's huge. Hopefully it's huge for you. I talk in the book about things that drive integrity. Again, being on time, being reliable, doing the things you say you're going to do, sharing credit with other people. All those things are, all those little things really add up. People will say, how will anybody ever trust me if they don't give me a chance? You know what? They give you a chance every moment of every day. Just show up and be a good person. And you continually do that, and eventually it'll grow. So that was really kind of the first book. And then from there, actually I was asked to co-write a book by Lewis Howes. I don't know if people are familiar with Lewis. He's he's big time. He's here in Columbus. And
that's right.
Yeah, he was down on his luck. He was living on his sister's couch. He came to a speech I gave. We talked afterwards, and he just came up to me. Great guy. He had a piece of poppy seed cake in his hand because his arm was broken, and he couldn't work. He the only thing he could do is be on LinkedIn. I wasn't even on LinkedIn. He encouraged me to get on LinkedIn, showed me how to use it, came to me one day, said, I want to write a book on LinkedIn. I'm like, that's great, Lewis. That's awesome. And I want you to co-author it with me. I'm like, okay, I'm not even really on LinkedIn, but it's really a strategy book. This is what you do in the real world. Do the same thing on LinkedIn or in social media in general. And from there, somebody else reached out to me about co-writing a book. And I was at that point writing a quarterly newsletter, which was, a page and a half. And you write 50 some quarterly newsletters and voila, you got a book. So it's, just one thing has kind of led into the other. I think the last one has been, I've been a collector of short sports stories, high school stories, feel-good stories, things like that. They're all over the internet. So I get them, and I just had a whole collection of these things. And so I put together a book that just kind of shared these stories and really the life lessons that's in each of these little stories. So will I write another book? Maybe. Not today.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's fantastic. From the Foundations book that you talked about, like, that's everything. And it's harder to quantify. It's harder to, write a book about and instruct people on, hey, have energy, be enthusiastic, be somebody that people like and want to trust and do business with. But it is, to the book's title, those are the foundational things in life, right? And very specifically when it comes to networking, because like you talked about, they may not have the polish, but if that intention is there, everything else is coachable. Everything else that's practice, and that's doing the reps, and you can get better at that stuff. But it's harder, I think, for people to wrap their heads around of like, okay, how do I be more energetic and likable? Okay, well, it's breaking that down a little bit. It's like, well, those are results. Those are, so here are actions that lead to those results. And again, starting with that intention is huge. And just, again, I study this stuff because it's fascinating to me. I just love it for whatever. Mine was the tipping point, when I read that, and I read, Malcolm Gladwell talking about connectors, and I was just like, furthest thing in the world from it at the time, but that was it. Like, it lit me up. I was like, that's what I want. I want to be that, and I went on that journey to, find out what are those things, and exactly, your books are what are the types that I gravitated to more. Is there's some action in there, but it was all around that intention and how to, if you're intending this way, here's how you show up that way. Those are the things more than, write out your name card, say your person's name 3 times. So like, those are great little nuggets too, but that intention is great. That's awesome. I didn't realize you would co-author that with Lewis, because that's when he was first on my radar back in the LinkedIn days. That was his, I remember his whole thing of like, really, got huge, and he's done amazingly well.
He has. Well, he has. Despite knowing me, he's done great things.
Well, you're the kingmaker. That's what you are right there.
Well, I think there's a lesson in that story, in that Lewis was, and people said to me at the time when, I'd invite him to lunch, we'd go out, we'd do things, had him over for Thanksgiving, because he was, he was down on his luck. I mean, he worked his butt off to get where he's at. But people said, why are you hanging out with that loser? I mean, where's this, you never know where people are going to go. Right. Yeah. And even if he didn't rise to the level he's at, you just never know where people are going to, where these, every contact has opportunity. One of the stories I talk about in the book, I'll just quickly share it, in my foundational networking book. I parked my car in downtown Columbus when I worked down there at a parking garage where you had to leave your keys because it was cheap, and they moved your cars around. So I figured, okay, I'm going to get to know my parking lot attendants. And I did, knew their names, said hello to them. A lot of fun stories with that. But there was a woman there, her name was Twyla, and she was kind of like the kingpin because she took everybody's keys and she had this board and she managed everything. And I talked to her every day. How you doing, Twyla? I mean, that was the extent of it. How's your daughter doing? How's your granddaughter? Is that a new picture? Did you go to the zoo? Well, she stopped me one day. She said, how would you like to be an extra in a movie? They're shooting a movie in Upper Sandusky, which is north of Columbus, where we're at. And they need attorneys to be extras. And I'm like, why not? This could be cool. Turns out it was the Shawshank Redemption. Is that amazing? That is totally amazing. Now,
Wow.
Camp for not an attorney. So I was a prisoner in the open court or prison scene, which is ironic because I was hoping to be an attorney. But the point is that you never know who people know, and there were hundreds of attorneys that came and went from that garage, and most people never gave her the time of day. And I was just hello every day. She didn't even know who I am. I remember her.
Yeah. And this is, I want to wrap with this topic because this is so powerful, and it I think it hangs people up on kind of both sides of this conversation around connection, on networking and all of that, because it's just good to do, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's just being a better human, those kind of things. And yes, something may come of it. There's 100 more that, a tangible thing doesn't come from it, like being in Shawshank Redemption, by the end of it.
Yeah.
And that's not the why, but my goodness, isn't life better when we go through it this way,
Yeah.
and spending that extra 15 seconds to acknowledge someone, look the cashier in the eye, and not you're just down like this all the time, be that human. And it makes such a big difference. The other, I don't know about the other side of it, but the other aspect of this is when people, they treat these skills as just, well, that's just, everyone knows how to do that. Everyone, you're either that way or you're not, or it's this. And understanding and getting across to people that these are very practiced skills, and again, we're going to come back to intention, right?
Yeah.
That's why it's important that your foundations book is so important, because it is necessary. Just because we're people and we can walk and talk and speak doesn't mean we do it well, right? Doesn't mean that, we just know what to do and are always going to say the right thing. These are very practiced skills. And again, it starts with that intention, but to have that model, right? To have Frank as a model, to go, that's what I want. For me to read Malcolm Gladwell's Tipping Point and go like, oh, okay, that way. First, it's the vision, right? Oh, this is possible to be this type of person. And then finding those skills. If you're learning skills of charisma, of, influence, of all of these things, that gets put in a bucket by a lot of people as like, oh, that's shady and you're just trying to manipulate people and blah, 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 blah. Well, no, I'm trying to be a better human because I know how I want them to feel. But if I don't know how to say it or ask the right questions or do it.
The metaphor I would use, or maybe analogy, I don't know if I get those straight, but it's like working out, right? Hey, I'm going to be in shape. Now, if you go to the gym once, yeah, that's a lot of BS, right? But if you commit to going to the gym 3 or 4 times a week over the course of 3, 4, 5, 6 months, it becomes who you are, then you truly have transformed. And so if you're somebody saying, okay, yeah, I'm just going to go to an event to put a big smile on my face there, and then I'm going to go home and kick the dog and yell at the neighbor and stuff like that, well, then you really haven't transformed. But if you're genuine about transforming, there's nothing disingenuous about it.
Tell everyone about the show as well, and that you have, and I want to make sure the right people are coming and finding you, and I want to know who should reach out to Frank Agin.
Yeah, I mean, I have a podcast that's called Networking RX. They say have the courage to suck at something. Back in the summer of 2018, I decided I was going to suck at podcasting and recorded my first 20-minute episode. It took me 8 hours. I came to the office on a Saturday. I wanted to cry because I was just trying to be a perfectionist, right? I said, I got to record the whole thing. The whole concept of editing. But I recorded episode 580 today, I think. So I think I'm there. I think it's going to last. Yeah. But I talk a lot about, get a lot of guests on who are experts on relationships, and it's pretty powerful stuff. But as far as getting a hold of me, I have a website, frankagin.com, which is kind of all things Frank Agin. Yeah, I do have the organization AmSpirit Business Connections. If people want to talk to me about that or franchise opportunities, great. But I'm happy to get people into the networking hub just to, meet other people. Again, I'm a firm believer that you help people and things will come back to you. So that's, types of people I'm looking to meet. I'm certainly interested in people who want to get involved in AmSpirit or people who might want to have me on a podcast like this. But I'm also interested in talking with people who are just needing a little bit of help. I'm working on a video series that people can watch to, kind of walk them through. Here's my take on networking, some strategies, some tactics. Now, obviously, have the books out there that if you go to frankagin.com, you can connect to them there.
Awesome. I encourage everyone to do so. Frank, thank you so much for being on. This is just an amazing conversation. One of my favorite topics, but just such an honor to talk to someone who's so great at it and really help the folks here.
Thank you.
And we'll see you all next time.
Thanks so much for tuning in and being a part of this show. If you want help creating authority building video content or even a client generating show of your own, go to MediaLeadsCo.com and let's connect. I'll talk to you soon on the next Strategy in Action.